The Nuggets lost to the Bulls, and they got blown out at home. So we're going to try and balance between, no, it's fine, and, well, not great. We're going to walk a very delicate line today on Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We appreciate you guys being a part of the community wherever you're joining us, whether it's on YouTube, where you can join folks like Ben Max Stioffen, Snail. No, I completely butchered that. TW, Brandon Card, other folks joining us in the comment section, or if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're listening, we appreciate you guys making us part of your week. On today's show, we will talk about the Denver Nuggets loss to the Chicago Bulls. Does it matter? Why doesn't it matter? Why did they lose? How did they lose? All sorts of things. We'll take a look around the Western Conference standings and take a look at where the overall playoff race is shaping up in the third segment. My name is Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network, joined by Adam Mares. He's director of content for DNVR. You can follow the pre- and post-game shows as well as podcasts every day, including their terrific conversation with Vlatko Chanchar yesterday at the bar. Adam, how you doing today?
I'm great. I'm fantastic. I slept well last night.
We're going to get into, in the second segment, the meaning of the game, right? About whether it matters or not.
Okay.
My goal today is I try and be very self-critical, not from like a too harsh on myself. I have been accused of that. But like early in the season when I was like, guys, it's fine. What are we doing? This is annoying. Stop. Like, that's wrong too. Like, I don't need to dismiss fans' concerns because those are very real and valid. I think it's okay if you walked out of last night being like, whatever. I think that's fine. I think it's okay if you walked out of last night and you're like, I'm always going to be a little nervous because of nights like these. You know, some of that is like they can't win every night. That's part of it. But we'll get into like the bigger picture stuff there. Let's start with the loss to the Bulls. If I asked you, I was like, hey, I missed a game last night. What's like the biggest reason they lost that game? What would you say?
I mean, I just don't think they're locked in. And I think it's impossible to fake being locked in. That's really what this comes down to. If you have a team, you always talk about which team has the motivation. If you don't have a real motivation, it's really hard to come up with a fake one. And there'll be nights where you have more motivation. Like I suspect Denver will be more motivated on Friday because you just lost in embarrassing fashion on Wednesday. But I think coming into this game, Denver walked through the Toronto game and won. I think they came into this game with probably even less urgency, and it ended up biting them, in the butt. So to me, there was a moment late. I mean, it was really late in the third quarter where there was a timeout and they came out of it. And I thought the whole team upped their intensity, almost as if to say like, okay, it's go time. We need to do this. And they couldn't get stops in that moment and they couldn't close the gap. And I just felt like it was one of those ones where they were like, oh, bummer. We played a little bit too long or we downshifted a little bit too far. So for me, that's all it is. I don't think there's anything about the style of the game or there's matchups or anything telling about them. To me, it just was Denver couldn't fake the motivation last night.
You don't come out impressed with those Chicago Bulls. You're not walking away.
I mean, no, like there wasn't a whole lot. Denver's defense in the first half was like hilariously bad.
Yeah.
I mean, the effort was just so low that these are NBA players. You let anybody kind of get a rhythm, get a confidence, they're going to play a little bit better. And I just thought Denver, like I said, I put it on the timeline, but it's my only takeaway. I think Denver downshifted too far and for too long. And then when they upshifted, this time the boosters didn't fire.
I still think, for me, I actually walked away a little impressed with the Bulls just because I've seen them not win this game enough. I've seen them be in this exact spot. I think a good comparison here is actually really interesting. I watched the Raptors Bulls game. I was actually at the arena waiting for the Nuggets game to start the other night. And I watched Raptors Bulls. And the Raptors are so offensively limited in terms of what they're able to do and how they're able to shoot and how they're able to score that they were begging the Bulls to win that game. And the Bulls just simply could not could not execute at a level necessary to beat the Raptors. They just gave the game up and let the Raptors out effort them. You have Monday where the Raptors are in that exact same spot, hustle and hard and work so hard. And the Nuggets are like, yeah, but we're better. And then you have this game where the Bulls essentially were like, if you are going to play to this level, we have the talent to beat you. You have to get to this level,
right?
But we have the talent to beat you. Chicago's defense is pretty good, just like overall league wide. They're actually top 10. That surprises a lot of people. I think that's pretty impressive given their personnel. They didn't even get a really great game from DeMar DeRozan. I mean, look, I don't know how else to get around this. Joker doesn't have to care every night. He's cared enough for them to get the 1 seed in the West, but he didn't care last night.
I mean, one of my questions I have about this game, and it's like conjecture, like there's no way for me to know this, but there were enough distractions last night. Number one, you have Jamal Murray going for the 3-point record he tweeted before, tonight's the night. Like you could tell it was on his mind and he was sort of looking for this moment. And it becomes a distraction. I mean, we saw with Will Barton, what did he go? He didn't make a 3 for like 3 or 4 games last year in a row when he was right at the edge. We know that that is a mental hurdle. And by the way, I think Chicago probably also knew this. I mean, I think part of why they played were so physical and aggressive with him is they probably knew he was going to be a little bit more, the scale was going to slide a little bit more for him looking for the 3 and looking for that moment. But then the other distraction, and again, I don't know this. After the game, Jokic made comment of it a little bit again for the second time, which is a little bit wild that he, watched the perk video or something. Jokic never comments on these. Now it's twice that he has commented on this specific one. But the last 6 days have been especially toxic for the Jokic conversation. I think it's reached the peak of all time. Like we talk about the 8 years Jokic has been here. The last week has been the most toxic conversation around him. And I don't know if that affected the way he played, but last night, Jokic played poorly. And if Jokic plays poorly, that's 50%, if not more, of your success is like, does he play well? And then you need 1 or 2 other guys. He played poorly last night on both ends. And it does make you wonder if some of this conversation is just like getting to him a little bit.
You pay him as much as you do for a reason. It is a shame that in this game, they couldn't pick him up, right? Like the one night that he needed to pick him up, the rest of the team couldn't do it. Like that's pretty rough.
But it's hard to be yes and no. It's hard to pick up a guy that's the fulcrum.
Yeah.
He just can't be bad. He has to be good.
Snail mentioned this, and I mentioned this on the podcast I was on Bet Stream yesterday for this game. This happened to Steph Curry when he was about to break the all-time threes. No one's exempt. It really is, man. If you're not just playing, it's so weird. Like the players, like they have to tune out everything. Like you just have to be it really is like a Zen concept. Like you have to be in the moment. Like it has to be just there and beyond all things. Like you can play emotionally, but I think when you have anything that's like disrupting your mindset, it's disruptive to the game.
I'm going to go further, Matt.
Ooh.
I don't think anyone can in today's day and age. I think there was a point in time where it was like, you have to be above the conversation, above this or that. I think that it's so ubiquitous now that there's no avoiding it. And we had Blacko Chanchar on DNVR yesterday or 2 days ago. And that was one of the things he said, like we asked like, oh, so do you see this? Do you see that? And he's like, guys, of course. Like we all see everything. Like there's nothing, you can't put blinders on to where this stuff doesn't reach you. And I just think with these players, like Jokic, of course, has been hearing the stat padding, the racism, he doesn't get any criticism. People just want to of course he hears all of this. And I think he, more so than just about any athlete, has been above it, meaning he has been removed from it. But even he has to feel some kind of way when he becomes this proxy for the most toxic conversations online.
This is me. I don't know. You have a much better understanding of Joker than I do.
Don't say much better. I don't think that's true. I don't think anybody knows him.
I think I'm just so far away. I think I'm just very far away.
Sure.
Is more on a scale, right? Like Jokic is over is like,
yeah,
he's up Cheyenne.
Over here.
Yeah, like Cheyenne, and you're in like Fort Collins, and I'm in like Colorado Springs.
Okay.
Our Serbian fans are like, what? For me, a lot of it is like, I never asked for this. Like, why am I all I did was go and play basketball. Like, like I never asked for this. And that's got to be difficult.
And it goes both ways, by the way. Like when you are a hero, and this is why I think it's so hard to stay balanced, is that when you are a hero, then you become a symbol for all kinds of things that you're not in a positive direction. All of a sudden, you're more than a basketball player. This is, it's all of these things. And unfortunately, right now, part of this is just the culture and where it's at, the online discourse culture. But right now, he's just seeing, and I really do. Do you agree with me that this has probably been the worst week in terms of people have argued, is he good? Is he bad? Is he overrated? But this week, like it's just become connected to so many other things in a way that before has been under, the subtext. Well, it bubbled to the surface over this last week in a way that it's like, I have to imagine he sits there and goes, how am I the symbol of this conversation?
I mean, look, we have Clay Travis involved in things, right? Like right wingers are retweeting things. I think anytime that you reach a point where like, as bad as things got last year, we've reached a point where literally whether Perk designed this or not, and I kind of think he did, like if you support Jokic, you're racist right now. Like that's like the intention of the commentary. And that's a big thing to insert.
You support him, but imagine if you are him. Like this is the thing I'm saying is it's got to be it's got to be the weirdest thing for him specifically because he just exists. He just goes and plays more so than any player in the NBA. He just goes out and plays the game and then goes home.
Yeah. Let's take a break. We're going to come back. We'll talk about up next. We'll talk about what this loss means. We'll also get to some questions about basketball stuff. We'll do that as well when we come back on Locked On Nuggets. Let's talk about the ultimate pro basketball GM game. I'm really geeked. Our new partner and sponsor of today's episode is the mobile game Ultimate Pro Basketball GM. If you've ever dreamed of becoming an NBA GM and managing your basketball franchise, your dream can come true, and this game's definitely for you. You get to manage every strategic aspect of your team, play through the season, and lead your team to glory. You're responsible for hiring the right coaches and assistants so you guys finally get to fire the coach like you've always dreamed of. Trading and training players, making draft picks, navigating your franchise through free agency and the draft, all the ups and downs of a season, all this in a challenging and realistic game. Ultimate Pro Basketball GM is completely free and playable online, offline, on the go, as you want and when you want to. Locked On Nuggets listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On in the game store. So make sure to check it out. Download the game. Just visit probasketballgm.com. Scan the code or look it up on the app stores. That's probasketballgm.com. Ultimate Basketball GM starts your dynasty today. We're also brought to you today by FanDuel. The midway point of the NBA season is here, and the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. New customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. You can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and threes drained. Or you could be like me and bet on Jokic to have a triple-double and the Nuggets to win versus the Bulls. Wah, wah, wah. FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. Some of those are really juicy. You can get it on things like MPJ threes, stuff like that. Don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us, making this part of your day. Appreciate you guys being with us on a Thursday. Hope your weekend is shaping up nicely. I did want to get to a basketball thing real quick because we've talked about this a little bit, but I want to kind of go back to it for a second. There was a question that someone asked. Garrett asked this. Serious question. When can we try Braun instead of Reggie? Bryant looked good the first game with Vlatko and Braun. We've talked about this, but my big thing here is just you need somebody to bring the ball up the floor, and I think that's one of the biggest things that fans, I thought this, I was like, it's not a big deal. You're just dribbling like 45 feet. What's the big deal? Players will tell you that bringing them the ball up constantly, being the one to do that job is actually taxing, that it does, like, because of the number of possessions and having to watch out for the defense trying to snipe you on the inbound all the way up the court, making sure everybody's connected, beating it when they come up to pressure you. That actually it is pretty taxing. I think that's a large part of this. It's just like, Christian Braun can't play point guard, and they need like a guy to bring the ball up the floor and do that kind of job. You're kind of nodding your head or shaking your head a little bit. Disagree there?
Not really. I mean, you're right that it's really tight, because part of me thinks like in a regular season you have Jamal Murray, so just let him bring the ball up. But I do agree that eventually the strategy will be when he's with the second unit, full court press him, wear him out, and then he's tired for the fourth quarter and the moments when you need him with the starter. So there's some truth to it. But this bench, to me, it is in some ways, I do look at it as a curse. Like these pickups, because I do think Denver was moving slowly in the right direction of just having an identity with that unit. And I do think that Reggie Jackson solves a problem, the one you're talking about, but creates an entirely new one, which is I don't think that unit has an identity, and I don't think they have a path to success, meaning I don't think there is if they do this, they will win. They don't have a coherent, like, oh, they're a great shooting lineup, they're a great defensive lineup, they're a great transition lineup. They don't really have a thing that I look at and I go, oh, they're going to be good at this. I just think that some nights Reggie Jackson is going to hit a lot of shots like he did in the Toronto game, and it's going to be a great boom. And I think other nights he's not, and I don't see where everybody else succeeds under those circumstances.
I have two questions about this game. One, this is back-to-back games. Okay. Let me back up. The Nuggets lost to the Bulls at home, got blown out. Off of this game, 1-5, 5 being like, I'm really concerned about the direction of this team. 0 being, I will forget this game after today. It meant nothing. What's a number for you?
5 for the fan base, 0 for the Nuggets, 5 for the fan base. Here's my real takeaway, Matt. We, as a fan base, are not ready for these upcoming playoffs. We are not ready. The stakes are so high. The rivalries are so deep. You're going to have to go up against you're going to be playing a team that you hate. Almost certainly you're going to be playing a team that the Nuggets fans absolutely hate at some point. And if you go back and look at prior playoffs, even the teams that win championships have buzzer beater losses, 20-point losses, contentious moments. This is just how it goes. Like you think you feel bad for this Chicago Bulls loss. Wait till you see what happens in game 1 of the second round when you lose at home by 20. That's where you're going to go to a dark place. And to me, this was one of those ones where, to me, I feel a 0. I'm a 0 concern for the Nuggets, but I'm a 5 for the fan base.
I like this take. It's true. I think fans have been on edge all year because there's so much it's good to have years. You can't always set expectations low, right? Like you sometimes have to have a high expectations.
Yep.
The problem is that you're weighing every individual performance against that expectation rather than the aggregate big picture. So in the moment, the Nuggets last night did not meet a championship expectation. They have met a championship expectation over the course of the 60 whatever games that they've played. Right. So like both things can be true. My concern level, I have a couple of things that I have I wouldn't say this is happening. It's that I'm not going to be when I thought about it, the game last night, I was like, I think too often I go the other direction where I'm just like, guys, stop. It's a regular season game. They didn't care, blah, blah, blah. Couple things. I can't realistically be the person that has consistently said that peaking too early is bad and ignore the concept of that happening to Denver. Now, I think Denver's timing has been nearly perfect. I have said repeatedly that this last month of the season does not correlate to playoff success. Smart people that are smarter than me at math have told me that that's what the data bears out. That essentially your winning percentage, point differential, all of the metrics that we use to determine team strength, that performance over the last month of the season is less correlated with playoff success than almost any other stretch of the regular season. It just isn't. That said, you don't want to get Ryan Blackburn, I'm always giving him grief about how in the early season he was like championship habits. And then they built him, right? They gave him time and they built him. The thing with a habit is that if you stop doing it for long enough, you no longer are that you no longer have that habit. And that's a balance they have to manage, right?
Here's the thing though, Matt, I'm with you 100% on all of this. I almost would be more concerned if this was happening in the last 2 weeks than if it's happening right now. There's a world in which, because they have a bunch of games that don't matter. And last night's game did not matter. It was the Chicago Bulls. No matter what you say, it was an Eastern Conference game, whatever. But they have such a cushion in the West. if the Suns were closer or the Warriors were closer, I do think Denver would be a little more dialed in, because it's like, no, in the West, we need home court against these teams. And when you get to the finals, it's too far away to even think about. But for me, if they might go through a lull, in fact, I suspect they will as they go on this. I think they have a bunch of road games in a row coming up. They have the San Antonio, then they come back home for one, and then they go on, I think, a 5-game road trip. I think that they're going to hit a lull during these games where they might drop one you don't like, and they might get blown out at one you thought they'd lose, but they'll get blown out at Knicks. They might get blown out that game. I don't know. But then they come back and they have the big games: Milwaukee, Philadelphia, Phoenix, Golden State, Phoenix, New Orleans. That's when they play. And so for me, I feel like there's an opportunity to hit this lull now and bounce back heading into the playoffs, where you're like, okay, they played some real games, they got their rhythm again, and they look like they're ready for the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree with this. I think that's a good take, because Jamal was very cautious with it, but essentially he hinted that they essentially did that with the Cleveland-Memphis sequence with the Clippers on the back-to-back.
That's the thing. You can't say they haven't done this. They actually just did it a week ago, where they did the tough games and played great and were ready and locked in.
Well, not only that, but like they beat Cleveland on the road. That was a game they got up for.
Yep.
They let slip versus Memphis, knowing they had the Clippers on Sunday night, came back on Sunday night at home on a back-to-back and killed
Took
the
it seriously. Played great. And then beat Memphis again in the revenge game. Like those were the games that mattered. Now they're up 7 games in the West, and they let one slip.
I will say this. You've been on, like, you paid a lot of you paid more attention to Joker's defense than I remember you talking about any other singular year. Probably because it's most important this season. It's been like, there is not great, but fine. There's like, okay, you're not giving effort, but you're doing like the job. And then there's like what he's been the last 2 games.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I have to call him out. You just can't be letting Zach LaVine get to his comfort spots every single play. You're not giving yourself a chance to win if you do that. The Bulls offense is so limited, and they let the Bulls get to the things that they want to do.
I mean, Yoke's defense was really bad. The energy in the game was so low. The energy in the arena, I thought, was so low. It just felt like a game. It just didn't feel like a very intense game at all. And yeah, Yoke often is the captain of that.
Interesting. I think.
By the way, part of this, one of the stories for this game is that Denver came out. They had 10 assists in the first quarter. Jokic had 5. I thought the ball was popping, and they had 29 points with no defense. But it felt like another game where you're like, oh, they're going to play bad and win by 15. Got it. And I think Denver probably felt that way as well. So after the first quarter, their defense was bad in the first quarter, but their offense was humming. And I think they were like, it's going to be one of these. And then it wasn't. And they couldn't pick up the other end of the court. Yeah.
They also couldn't shoot. That was the other problem, is like, you could tell that they were annoyed that they couldn't knock down the threes at the level that they wanted to. Like, the numbers were good at half. They were like 44% and they finished 37.5. But
that first quarter where they were on fire.
Yeah. And then like MPJ goes 2 of 7. KCP went 1 of 4. Jamal went 1 of 7 trying to get the record. It was just, Jeff Green gave him 2 threes, and that boosted their numbers. So they couldn't shoot. I will say this too. There's a couple of weird things. They got away from process a lot last night. One of the things that I think is like significant, I didn't understand the relentless attack to Aaron Gordon in the third. Like, he was just like, they were running that constantly, and AG was, and it was like, well, yeah, but he's like, right? He's drawing fouls and I was like, yeah, he's drawing fouls and then missing them. But the other thing is that the Bulls want you to try and beat them with those kind of attempts, right? Like, the Bulls' problem is that they can't keep up with the math game. And the Nuggets really got away from that, and they just really leaned into what Chicago wants to do. I didn't understand that sequence. And then I also didn't understand why Jokic started absolutely just it didn't feel – I have never seen Joker be like, we really need 3, so I'm just going to start chucking threes. That's like the thing I've never seen from him before.
Well, so he comes down and hits one. When I told you they called the timeout and then they come out with a little bit more energy, he comes out and hits one, and you think like, all right, time. And he's got a pep in his step. So I do. And they were down like 12 or something at that point. So they needed to make up some ground. He was asked after the game, and he said, we were down. We needed to come up. That's why I started shooting him. And I actually, watching the game, that's actually how I felt.
Okay.
It was too late that he was just like, if I hit 2 or 3 of these, we're right back into it. And he hit one, and he hit another a little bit later. But after the game, Michael Malone was very calm typically after a game like this, Michael Malone is like fired up. I mean, you know it. He's fiery and he's pissed at his team for the effort he gave. He was pretty calm in the post game, and he took a lot of the blame. You know, we didn't play well. We weren't focused, and I didn't coach a very good game tonight. And the way he talked about it made me think, I wonder if this team just did a little bit less prep for this game than they typically do because they wanted to focus on something with them. And then they were completely unprepared for, make the proper adjustments or something. He at least alluded to that in this game.
Interesting. Up next, we will go around the Western Conference. KD's injury, Memphis's spiral, all those things. How does it impact the Nuggets playoff outlook? We'll do that in the next segment. First, let's talk about the Nissan Most Electric Player of the Week, brought to you by the all-new, all-electric 2023 Nissan Ariya. Adam, who's been the most electric player of the week for the Denver Nuggets?
I'll go with, is it Jamal Murray? I mean, he had a bunch of threes earlier in the week until last night.
I'm going to go with Jeff Green.
You're right. You know what? You are right. You got it right. It's Jeff Green.
Jeff Green. The blocks, the threes, all the big plays.
By the way, Vlatko Čančar was asked who takes losses the hardest, and he said Jeff Green. Jeff Green takes the losses the hardest. And he said, and then we kind of chuckled, and he called us out, said, "Why are you laughing?" He's like, "This is disrespect." He said, "It's Jeff. The reason is he's been in this for a long time. He could see the end of his career, and a championship means that much more to him. So right now, every loss, he just keeps thinking about the championship." And I thought, man, what great insight.
Man, that's phenomenal. That's so great to hear. And, that shows Jeff Green, brilliantly fierce, fiercely elegant, stunningly powerful, elegantly powerful. That's a great way to describe Jeff Green, is elegantly powerful. He's a very elegant player, I would say. Actually, and all those things are true as well about the new Nissan Ariya, which packs pin-you, to-your seat power, and premium intelligence all in one electric vehicle. The all-new, all-electric 2023 Nissan Ariya, the EV for people who love to drive. Shop now at nissanusa.com. We're also brought to you today by Built Bar. If you're looking for a delicious treat, but you don't want all the fat and calories, you got to try Built Bar. What makes Built so good? Well, for starters, they're covered in 100% real chocolate, while only having 4 grams of sugar and just 130 calories, but with 17 grams of protein. You don't need to wait around to get a box. For years, we've been telling you about how you can get your bars at Built.com. Now you can get them at Sam's Club or Walmart. Go into Sam's Club and grab a 13-bar box. Get you set for a while with their hit flavors, brownie batter, and churro, which is my personal favorite. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs at your local Walmart. Make sure to check them out, and you can see all the flavors at Built.com. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us, making us part of your day. I appreciate you guys being with us and making us your first listen. Want to make sure that you guys check out Game to Game on the Locked On NBA feed. Ab and I are on Locked On NBA. I'm on Tuesdays. He's on Fridays. You should make your second listen today. Locked On Game to Game, which has got every moment, every top performance, and every result. They cover every game from across the NBA with local analysis only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on the Locked On NBA feed, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, wherever you get podcasts. So, Adam, this morning news comes out that Kevin Durant, after bizarre injury in warm-ups, there was a slippery spot on one of his warm-up plays.
Was there?
Yeah, that's what happened.
It was slippery spot?
Yeah, it was a wet spot. Yep.
I mean, sometimes you just slip. That's why I'm saying I didn't know.
No, yeah, like they said
water
that the floor was slippery and somebody had cleaned it up, and then
Jesus,
there was still a spot. Which is why Suns fans are like, I want the ball boys fired. So he's out at least 4 weeks.
No, is that true? At least 4 weeks?
Yeah.
Oh, I hadn't seen that. Okay.
Like it's likely they're doing it. Well, I'm sorry. It's like they're doing imaging right now.
Okay.
It's the expectation is that the rest of the regular season, and potentially the first round. That's notable.
I mean, I'll believe that when I see it. Nonetheless, a bad ankle sprain. I just don't want to go this far. I'm doing with LeBron too, where everybody's like, he could be out for forever, and then he's going to come back, and it's going to be heroic. It looked bad. It looked like a bummer. And they were saying grade 2. And then I think this is where the timeline is coming from, is a lot of people saying, well, typically a grade 2 means this.
Danny says they don't know anything yet. Apparently that report is very speculative. Okay. Look, he could come back earlier for sure. What I'm saying is, even if he only misses like a couple of weeks, here's where the standings are at. The Suns are at 29 losses. The Warriors are at 32. The Clippers and three teams are at 33 losses. Now, I'm captain of we don't have enough games left. Like everyone yesterday was like, are the Grizzlies going to make the playoffs? And I was like, guys, they have a 7-game lead on the 7th seed. The Grizzlies are making the playoffs. Like, sorry, they're not falling that low. The Suns are right about in the middle where now look, I think they can probably get it done because with Booker and CP3, that team was still with it at not, I mean, they have McHale and Cam, so that matters. I'll say this, they can't afford another injury.
They can't afford another injury for sure. Here's the thing though, Matt, Booker is having an incredible season.
He's amazing.
He's
so good.
His first like 6 weeks before the injury or whatever was unbelievable. I mean, he had 2 50-point games, I believe. He's honestly, these last 2 playoff runs, this is one of those sneaky reasons playoff runs are so important, is I think they make you a better player because that's the highest level of basketball. You can't copy. There's nowhere on earth you get the reps of an NBA finals and a conference finals. Those are the top reps in the world that you can't mimic. And he's gotten those 2 years in a row. And I just feel like he's at the top of his game, and it's disguised because he missed so much in the middle. But here he is back to scoring 30 plus every single night on great efficiency. So Devin Booker, I'm with you. I think that this hurts the Suns, but as long as they don't suffer another injury, which is a big if, I actually don't think they're going to fall in the standings.
I think they could fall to 5. I think that one of those teams can get hot and catch them, whether it's Clippers, Warriors, or
one of them could. Yep.
Mavericks. I think that's possible. I will say, like, if it were to get real bad, if they were to have any, like, here's the thing, their margin for error is very thin now. It was already that way because they lost McHale and Cam. Like, you lost 2+ players in that trade, and you gained a player that's way better and makes their ceiling way higher, right? You do that trade. But they don't, especially Landry Shamet's still out. They don't have a lot of margin for error, and margin for error usually gets impacted not by your play at this level. It gets impacted by injury. If they lose anybody else, now you're in real concern. And like the idea is like, Robert's like, well, I think he could be back for the playoffs. And I was like, look, if they slip enough and they're in the play-in spot, he may not have a chance. This is the play-in thing.
Not only that, they have done a very good job. Like, he arrived and they've been winning. There hasn't been a lot of ramp up, but the playoffs are different. Like, you do need practice attacking multiple different strategies and situations. And it's just looking like, let's put it this way, Matt. Are the Suns more likely to win it now that KD got injured, or less likely? I think less likely. And that's all this is it's probably going to be a much shorter runway for them to figure this out. And they're likely to get into the playoffs and play a series where it's like, oh, here's a strategy. Well, we've never practiced attacking this yet. We don't actually have a chemistry or an understanding of what it is we're trying to do. So to me, this is this doesn't ruin their season, doesn't end it, but it does, I think, significantly discount their odds. Meaningfully.
It definitely helps the Kings in keeping their division chances for a top 3 seed, potentially top 2. This makes it a little more likely, honestly, given how things were going, that the Suns are going to wind up in the Nuggets side of the bracket.
This you think it's more likely? Oh, because they'll almost certainly be 4 or 5 instead of 3.
Yes, gotcha. Like, it's more. I will say this: like, I've talked about, like, look, they could really fall here. It's way more likely that they're 4 or 5 than 6, 7. Like,
I think the fear for me is that the Grizzlies and Suns are both in the 4 or 5. That, to me, that would be the big concern. And I think that's hard because you need the Warriors to like grab 6 spots, and that's a lot, or the Clippers or any of these teams. But just because if you got Phoenix, Memphis, I think Memphis is just falling that I think they might be an easy first round matchup relative to everyone else. If you get Golden State, Phoenix, hey, 2 good teams are going to go at each other and that stuff. Even if you get Clippers, Phoenix, there you go. Like, you just eliminate one extra team, and I think you get a better read. Some of this is you want a team that shows you something in round 1 that you can use in round 2.
Let me present 2 scenarios. I want to know which one you prefer.
Okay.
The first scenario is that the 4-5 is Grizzlies, Suns. Okay. That's tough to get to, actually. Let me rethink that. No, the first scenario is that it's Grizzlies. I'm sorry, it's Suns Warriors. That's the first scenario.
Okay.
Is that the 4-5 is Suns Warriors, and that means that the Nuggets have to play one of Phoenix or Golden State in round 2.
Yeah.
The other scenario is that Phoenix is in the 4 spot, and the Warriors are in 6, and so the Warriors are on the other side of the bracket. You still got to go through Phoenix. I don't see any scenario where you don't have to go through one of them.
Yeah.
But you avoid the Warriors until the Western Conference Finals. Which of those scenarios do you prefer?
Oh, easily the Suns Warriors first round. And here's why. I think the Warriors have a good chance of beating the Suns. Some of this is just history. I mean, Chris Paul has not made it past Steph Curry. This has been a thing that he's kind of that matchup in particular, Chris Paul versus this Warriors team. Number 2, I mean, I just trust that the Warriors are going to be able to make them most vulnerable and figure them out. So I would rather that. I think it's a tough matchup for the Suns, and even if they get through it, the Suns I think will force the Warriors will force the Suns to show their hand in a way that would help Denver. But honestly, I prefer it. You're going to match up, as you said, you're going to have a really, really, really tough second round matchup no matter what. And I'd rather you get a team that had to work in the first round.
I like this. I like that take. That's a good take. The ideal scenario is that the Grizzlies fall, the Suns move into the 3 spot. The
Warriors
Grizzlies fall to
6 or
4.
something.
The Clippers make the Clippers or Mavericks make a run to 5, and the Warriors fall to 6. That's like the best of all worlds for Denver. Is that it's 3 Suns versus 6 Warriors,
right?
With the Nuggets avoiding both until the conference finals. That is the best of all worlds.
It is, but here's another scenario: is that you just end up with the Lakers, Warriors, and Mavericks, Clippers. 3 of those 4 teams all end up in the play-in, and one of them's getting eliminated right off the bat. To me, that would be another. I mean, part of me is looking at this Lakers who have climbed to 9 and just thinking, are they going to have an easy play-in or a tough one? And right now, they host the first round against the Pelicans. It looks like an easy win, and then you would get the loser of Dallas versus Minnesota. That kind of feels like another easy win. So part of me looks at it and thinks I want the play-in a little bit stacked as well.
This Lakers team is just like it is in your closet at night waiting to scare you.
To be honest, I'm kind of over it. And it's funny because I look at this a little bit like in years past, it's what's the easiest path. Part of me wonders if that's the right way to approach this. Part of me wonders if it's just like, no, get the tough path. I do think there is something to Milwaukee when they won had a very tough path. And I think there's something to, if you go into an easy first round series and then the hardest second round series, you might not be fully prepared for it. It's just hard. Whereas I think if you go through a tough first round one, you elevate to where you're ready now for the hard matchups.
Alan says this, and I keep thinking about it too. The 2011 Mavs had to go through the Lakers in the second round too. I keep thinking about that series. It was crazy.
Yeah.
I love the Mavericks. Like I wrote about the Mavericks being a title contender in like November of that season. And then Caron Butler got hurt. And so they fell off for a long time. And like he never came back. But like they started to sharpen up at the end. And then we got to that second round series and it was crazy. Like they won the first 2 games and everyone's like, okay, but the Lakers are going to win. And I'm like, but they just won the 2 in LA. Like, what do we do? What? And then they won game 3. And like Kobe was still like, well, I mean, we're coming back. And then it was over. It was crazy. The series was nuts. Okay. Good show today. Thanks for joining us. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe. Let us know that you appreciate the show. You can hit us on Twitter at LockedOnNuggets. Appreciate all the positive comments we've gotten around there. Have yourselves a great day. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode. We'll set you up for the Spurs game as well as the weekend for the Denver Nuggets. Until then, we'll see you again next time on Locked On Nuggets.